Chavre, a guten Erev Shabbos Kodesh. I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und freilich, begashmis u'beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong, and happy physically and spiritually. This past week I had the flu, Baruch Hashem, and now I'm feeling a lot better, Baruch Hashem. I beg forgiveness if this is not top-notch, so we'll have to excuse my matzev in gesund. So, as usual, since the war started, we're giving tzedakah. First of all, Gedel tzedakah, Shem HaKalev Zagula. Mashiach should come now. This week was Beis, Gimel Tammuz, which is the Chag HaGeula of the Friedrich Rebbe. And Sunday, Mirza Hashem Be'ez Mizborach, is going to be Shivasa B'Tammuz. So, I thought about what we're going to speak about, and I'm always looking for the signs and the messages from Hashem, and I think we couldn't get a clear message, and everything was pointing to that. But before we start, we'll start with the prayer, and this is a preemptive strike, so to speak, for the 3 weeks, and this is what we say every single day. At the end of Shvei Neser, Yehei Ratzoin, Milfanecho, Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokei Aviseinu, Sheiboneh Beis Hamikdash, B'meira v'yameinu, V'sein Chalkeinu, B'seirosecho. We're asking the Eibishter, the Shebi Sheiboneh Beis Hamikdash, B'meira v'yameinu, now. V'sein Chalkeinu, B'seirosecho. So already, V'skumt shoin Shivasa B'Tammuz this year, V'tezayin Yahovchu Yom Meil L'sosn L'simcha L'meidem Tevim, as the Rambam says that all the fastings will turn to Yom Tovim. So, the subject we're going to talk about now is Jewish survival, and something which is so unbelievable, how we see how Yiddishkeit, everything is in sync, and it's so awesome. So, as we know, the entire Jewish world knows that there was something called, a month ago around, Operation Rising Lion. And that was when Eretz Yisrael made a preemptive strike against Iran. Baruch Hashem, they went the Rebbe's way. Habola Hargecha. If someone is out to kill you, you're meant to strike first. And Bibi Netanyahu took a piece of paper with a posik from this week's Pasha, Kapitel Chav Daled, Kapitel Chav Gimel, Posik Chav Daled, Hen Klovi Yokum Uchari Yisnasei Lo Yishkav Ad Yechal Teref V'dam Chalol Mishta. But he put in the beginning, Hen Klovi Yokum Uchari Yisnasei. Behold, a people who arises like an awesome lion and raises itself like a lion. He does not lie down until he consumes prey and drinks the blood of the slain. But wait, there's more. This is part of Bilam's second amount of blessings. So let's recap for a second. This week's Parsha, there's Balak who wants to bring harm to the Jewish nation. He hires Bilam the prophet to curse the Yidden, and the curses turn into blessings. In the second blessings, he says this pasuk, and we'll soon see Rashi's interpretation. But then there's another pasuk in Kapitel Chav Daled. Hold on a second. Kapitel Chav Daled, pasuk Tes. In Kapitel Chav Daled, pasuk Tes, you're not going to believe it. Kora Shochav Kari. He crouched and lay down like a lion. Uchalavi mi kimenu. Who can stand him up? Those that are blessed will be blessed, and those that are cursed will be cursed. So here we see how this reference to the Yidden as a lion is not once in the Parsha, but twice in the Parsha. So obviously we have a klutz kasha straight away. What's the difference in the first time that the Parsha brings this idea that Bilam is giving a blessing, that we're like a lion, and what's the difference in the second time? So the Balaturim immediately says a very interesting thing. And he says first that Kilovi is like a lower level, like when you're young, when you're weaker. So this is the Balaturim. On the pasuk of Chavdalet Tes, the Balaturim says, previously it said Henam Kilovi Yokum Chariyis Nasa. L'mayla higdim lovi. First, over there, he mentioned first like the cub. And he says, Kikein derech, mitchili is gaber ma'at kilovi. First, you have a smaller amount of strength, like when you're a smaller cub. But v'ach kach yisnase v'hoylech kamoy hari, shum is gaber v'hoylech. But then once you start going, you become stronger. When you become older, you become stronger. But v'kan higdim ari lovi. But over here in the second blessing, it's a different sort of blessing. And I believe that this is, in a way, a deeper one, even though in a certain sense you might think it's not. But according to Chassidus, there's Maimorim that are on this pasuk, not in the first one. There's a Maimor of the Rebbe of Tafshin Tezayin Beis Tammuz and a Sikha in Cheli Beis. And the Rebbe speaks on this pasuk. And the second pshat over here is like this. And it fits with what Chassidus says. V'kan higdim arila lovi. Sheromas gam kain. Shochav kari b'mei Moshe. Ari is stronger. He's consistent with saying Ari is the stronger one. Uchalovi b'mei Yeshua. But the weaker one, the one that's not as powerful and strong, is Yeshua. Shepnei Moshe k'mnei Chamo. Upnei Yeshua k'mnei Levana. Because Moshe was compared to the sun, and Yeshua is compared to the moon. And the light of the moon is much inferior to the sun. But the truth is, really, what's really hidden over here is to tell you that it's the same thing. It might look different. It's a later generation. But that Lavi works both ways. He will turn into an Ari. Deep down, if you dig deeper, you'll find Ari there too. Now, let's talk about, so Bibi Netanyahu wore a talis when he put this in the Kaisla Maravi. Now, Rashi says over here, I want to show how fundamental to the whole of Yiddishkeit this pasuk is. And Afagav Diulei Chazi Mazlayu Chazi, I doubt very much that Bibi Netanyahu had any idea of a Gemara that we'll mention, and a Medrash, and Shulchan Aruch. So the Rashi over here is very famous. In the first pasuk, on Hen Kalovi Yakum, so Rashi says, when they get up from the sleep, Shachas in the morning, Hem is Gabrin, they exert themselves, Kilovi V'chari, like an awesome lion and like a lion, Lachtef is our mitzvahs to grab commandments. Lilbish talis, to wear a talis. And he was wearing a talis when he put that in. Likre Shema, to read the Shema. Ulaniach tefillin, to put on tefillin. That's how Rashi learns Pshat. What does it mean? Hen kilovi yokum v'goymer. It talks about spiritual strength. Like Ezeu giberak kovish is yitzrei. Who is the strong one? The one who conquers his will. You're not strong because you pick up 500 pounds. You're strong because you wanted to speak bad about another person and you held your tongue. For example. And then the next Rashi, where it says, Lo yishkav ad yechel teref. He does not lie down balayla al mitosei ad shu eichel umechabel kol mazik kabol torfei. Just like a lion does not lie down on his bed until he eats and destroys any harmful force which comes to damage him. And Ketzad, what does it mean in the spiritual realm? Koire shmal mitosei. He reads the Shema before he goes to bed. Mafkir ruchai. He gives over his spirit for safekeeping. He surrenders to the Eibishter. I'm yours. Biyad mokem. And then Rashi says, Bo machne v'gayis. If any army came to Lazikim to destroy them, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shemram v'nilcham ulchamesom u'mapilim chalalam. So we see the Rashi over here connects it to reading Krishma, getting up in the morning and at night. Now there's a very interesting Gemara that says that they wanted to put Parshas Balak into Krishma every single day. That we know the most powerful, most famous, most universal, most classic, essential prayer of the Yidden is Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. And because over here it mentions the idea of Yokum and Yishkav, like it says by Krishma, V'shachbecha, U'v'kumecha, when you lay down and when you get up. So therefore they thought to put this there also. But there's an interesting point, I don't have an explanation. The Gemara, when it mentions this, Rashi is calling a Tanchuma. But there's a Gemara in Brachas, Daf Yud Beis, Amud Beis, where the Gemara says like this, just to show you how fundamental this pasuk is to Judaism. Amar Abavo ben Zutrosi, Amar Yehuda bar Zvida, Bikshu lekvoya Parshas B'Krishma. They wanted to put the Parsha Balak by Krishma, they mali kavua. Why didn't they put it in? Mishum teirich tzibur, because it would make the davening too much longer. My timer, why did they want to put it into Krishma? The second passage where it mentions Kali, Kora shachav Kali uchelavi mi kimenu. We just the second passage we mentioned that he crouches like a lion. Yeah. So over here also it says shachav and mi kimenu. So we see how fundamental this in Yiddishkeit that in the Gemara it comes out because of this pasuk. In the end, they didn't put it in because we can't divide parshas, and we'd have to put the whole parshas Balak, but that would be too much. But the focus is on the psukim where it speaks about how the Yidden are compared to a lion, and they have strength of character, discipline, to take the initiative and to do the right thing, no matter what, despite all opposition. Now, in Chassidus, it talks about this pasuk, Kora shachav Kali, uchelavi mi kimenu, and we bring from Medrash Tanchuma. You know what? When the first time we mentioned Shulchan Aruch, again, so everyone knows the Shulchan Aruch, Oire Chaim, which is the guiding way of a Jew's life, the manual for life, which according to many opinions, that's the most important part of Torah you're meant to learn. How does the Shulchan Aruch start? Siman Aleph, the first chapter of Shulchan Aruch, of the first chelik of Shulchan Aruch, starts with Yehuda Matei Oimer Havaoz Kanemer. You should be as bold as a leopard. Kal Kanesher Otzkatzi Begibur Kari, as strong as a lion. And he says over here, the Gibur Kari, I'm reading from the Alter Rebbe, Ikar Agvuru Belev, the main strength is from the heart. Liz Gaber al Yitzray Lenatzchai, to overcome your evil inclination. Ki Gibur Amas Gaber al Soynoi Lenatzchai La Pili Loretz. Like a strong person who overcomes his adversity and is victorious and throws him to the ground. And v'chein tzorach kol adam b'bekel is Gabriel Yitzchak Ari. It's talking about getting up straight in the morning. Lokum mishnosei koydem eir habeker la'avodas boire. You should wake up before it turns daylight. So the main part of the beginning of Shulchan Aruch, he speaks about Gibur Kari, the four things of Oz Kanemer. He mentions the idea of Gibur Kari, and that's what he focuses on. So in other words, they say Amalek tzich shlafen v'aleib, shtei benu v'aleib. And everything goes based on the beginning and the first minute. So the first foundation and the beginning of everything starts with the psukim over here in this week's parsha. According to the Tanchuma, that's what the pasuk means over here. To get up and grab the mitzvahs, grab them. Fast, quick. And don't let get anything in your way. Okay, now, according to Chassidus, this second pasuk, Kara Shachav Kali, Uchelavi Mi Kimenu, is talking about the time of Golus. And that's a Medrash Tanchuma, which says, Kora Shochav Mitzidkiyo ad Melech HaMashiach. That means from the time of the Churban Beis HaMikdash, from the time of Golus till Mashiach, we're more like the crouching lion. And that's the message over here, that even though it's only like Kilavi, but really we have the full strength if you dig deeper. And this is the concept of the famous pasuk, Ani Yeshena Begalusa V'li Bi'er, that I am asleep during exile, which you might not see all the powers like a crouching lion. It's more like it's dormant, but my heart is still alive. Now, let's connect this to this week, Yud Beis Tammuz. The people of this generation, younger than me, don't really appreciate, they can't even imagine what life was like in the Soviet Union in the times of Stalin, Yamach Shemoy. I went to Russia in 1986. So there was before the fall of the Soviet Union, so I've met a lot of these Chassidim that lived through those times and they described it to me. I'll just explain you one chassid. He's a famous chassid of the Folien and Moiten. He told me in the times of Stalin, they were scared to breathe. If you spoke to the wrong person, and that person was suspected about doing counter-revolutionary activities against the government, that person disappeared, and then you disappeared. Chas v'shalom. And once a person was sent to Siberia, he didn't forget it so quickly. So they were living in a terror regime. And this was the sort of spirit that they had to have. So Yud Beis Tammuz is the Chag HaGeula of the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Frierdiker Rebbe is a symbol of a hero, like this rising lion. And he inspired the whole generation to continue fighting for Yiddishkeit. And whenever I thought to myself, when the Rebbe would say the letter of the Frierdiker Rebbe, would quote the letter where the Frierdiker Rebbe says that when he was redeemed, it wasn't only him, but it was the whole generation, I thought to myself, yeah, but millions of Jews died and left the fold. And there's so many don't even know that they're Jewish. But then when I went to visit Russia, and then a year or two later when the whole Soviet Union crumbled, and we see today what flourished, we see how the Frierdiker Rebbe won. Because it didn't come something out of nothing. It was the seeds that the Frierdiker Rebbe did, and his Mesilas Nefesh, and the Tamimim of Tomchei Tamimim Lubavitch, that kept Yiddishkeit going, small pockets over the entire country. The Frierdiker Rebbe was leading an underground, you can call it a spy organization, for Hashem, that took down an entire country. The Rebbe would say that what we learn from the Frierdiker Rebbe is how one individual, with the help of his Chassidim, could face a superpower. Russia was considered a superpower, and win with the koyach of Torah mitzvahs. And as the Frierdiker Rebbe said when he was sent into exile, another example of his Mesilas Nefesh, that he spoke at the train station as he was being sent to exile into Kastrama, and he said that nicht mit unseren Wellen sind wir gegangen in Golus, und nicht mit unseren Wellen der Ausgehen von Golus. He said, no one has power over a Jewish soul, nor the Guf is reingegangen in Golus, aber nicht the Neshama. The soul is never in exile. The soul is free, and the soul is the rising lion that is infinite and transcends time and space, and no weapon on this planet Earth could conquer a soul. Actually, there's one story, I must have said it before because I love this story. One time the Frierdiker Rebbe was arrested. I don't know if this is in the story of Beis Tammuz, because he was arrested 7 times, and he was walking along the corridor of the police station, and they told him to take off his hat. But he kept on walking, he ignored them. The captain of the guard, he was surrounded by like 10 troops with guns and swords. And they said, take off your hat, and he was ignoring them. Finally, the captain stopped. And he looks in the field again and he says, I'm ordering you now, take off the hat. And he's in the police station, he's a prisoner. And then the field Rebbe looked at the person and he told him, do you know who I am? I'm the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and no power on this planet will force me to do what I don't want to do. And they let him alone, and he was able to walk with his hat. So this is the sort of strength that he inspired all of his Chassidim for generations and generations to continue spreading Judaism even after he left Russia. Just to tell you a story, when I went to Russia, just to give you a couple of snippets. One of the activists over there, his name was Grisha Rosenstein, Olav Shalom. And I'm walking with him to the street, and he looks at me one day and he says, you know why the Russian government can't stand me? Because I have the look of a free man, a Ben Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov. The Russian government wants you to cower in defeat, to show submissiveness. But he walks proud, a Ben Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov. They see that, they know that this is stronger than any bullets. This is stronger than any tanks. And that's why they can't stand him. They know the Jew is the one who is not going to surrender no matter what. And when I went to Russia and I saw the spirit of what was going on, we had to go quietly. I was interrogated by the KGB. It's another story. A father told me that if he was able to, he would drill holes in a suitcase and send his 2 children with me back to America in the suitcase so that the kids could be brought up in a Torah true environment, to be able to do whatever they can do. Every time we used to give shiurim, they knew in advance. I went as a representative of Ezra Sachem. That was an organization that used to send students to come there to study, to learn with the people in Moscow. I went to Moscow, Leningrad, to Tbilisi, Odessa. Anyways, we give a class for 2 hours, and I'm not exaggerating, 2 hours talking the whole time. It was in Hebrew. That's another story, how Lashon Kodesh, it's illegal to know Hebrew in Russia. But anyways, I would finish the talk, and I'm exhausted, and they would go, their thirst for Torah was unbelievable. Their Mercedes never was unbelievable. Every one of these people were engineers and scientists and doctors, and they became refuseniks. That's another whole story. Anyways, the point that I want to bring out is what the Rebbe would say from Beis Tammuz is that we have to take advantage. We're living in a free country. And like Rashi says over here, lachtov, grab the mitzvahs. It's free. Every mitzvah you're doing is unbelievable. You don't understand how precious it is, how amazing it is, etc., etc. And there's a Hayom Yom talking about the showers before the 3 weeks, and that's why this is so relevant. We connected Operation Rising Lion, Yud Beis Tammuz, and now we're coming to the 3 weeks, which is Shchinta Begalusa, Ani Yeshena Begalusa, V'li Be'er. So in the Yemim of Chaf Aleph Tammuz, he speaks about the idea that the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, but the destruction was only in the binyan, in the building. And he says over here, V'cheinu gam b'mikdash haprati sheb'chol echad v'echad b'Yisrael. The same thing is true by every single person in his personal sanctuary. The foundation is still pure. The every single Yiddish neshama is invincible. I'm asleep, and that means like the crouching lion. Mamish dizel bezach. That's what the pasuk means over there, according to the Medrash Tanchuma. That the second pasuk of the lion is telling us the power of the Yid, even in the circumstances where it seems like there's been destruction. But v'li be'er, the spark cannot be extinguished. It's invincible. And then he says over here, you'll see that Yemim, look up yourself, the whole inyan hashimum, any destruction, Achman al-San, sheyeshne b'Yisrael, that's in a Jew, rak b'dugmas habinyonim, it's like compared to the building Shemichutz layisoid. It's only external. It's only superficial. Aval layisoid, but at the foundation, the Migdash haprati, by the personal sanctuary, hu bigdushosai. It's in its ultimate holiness. So this is the message, and this is how we connect it to all the things. But I want to get back to the Frierdiker Rebbe. They made a video from Gem a couple of years ago, and they called it Embers. And that's exactly a beautiful word that brings that out. That even though the Frierdiker Rebbe had to leave the country, but there was forever the embers, al derech v'libi air, that were operating all over the entire country. And the same thing had continued later with the Rebbe. In other words, simple chassidim, I'm calling them simple, the Beryl Shmerels that were impacted by chassidim. They made baltshuvas. They kept Yiddishkeit alive with bris milas, bar mitzvahs, and davenings. And then, when the Soviet Union fell, Lubavitch, and Lubavitch alone, was able to become like an empire of institutions and institutions, which is a direct result of the Frierdiker Rebbe's work. Not indirect, direct. And that's what I witnessed with my own eyes when I went in 1986 to Russia. The Eibusher should help that Take Yehofchu Yomel Sosnel Simchel Medim Tevim Mashiach now, and the schus that we'll do our Mesiras Nefesh. Ezeu Gibar HaKovish is Yitzray. Practice. Flex your lion muscles. Flex your lion muscles. If we flex our lion muscles, Kadiskafi Sitarachere, Istalik Yikora the Kutshe Brichu Bechul Almin, and will cause the Gula Mitzvah Shlema take it from Yad Mamish.